Today's event is organised by Ricolite, the UK's leading compliance body for the waste, electrical and electronic equipment regulations. I'm Ray Maloney. I'm the editor of the Circular Lighting Report, which is brought to you by Ricolite. And I'm going to be your host for today. Now, our webinar is titled Taking Action, Sustainability for Lighting. And we're going to explore the measures and the steps that manufacturers can take to tackle their carbon footprint that they generate while making luminaires. So we're going to look about your procedures and the processes in making those light fittings. We're also going to look at the policies and business practices and models that can have an impact. Now, we've 4 excellent featured speakers this morning. We have Dave Hollingsby, who's the Managing Director of Stone Lighting, a pioneer in sustainability, and he's also a founding member of the Green Light Alliance. We have Tim Bowes, he's the Head of Lighting Application at Whitecroft Lighting. Zara Drake, who's Brand Strategy Manager at Skinflint Lighting, a very interesting and unique business model and place in the industry. We have Shalene Church, she is the founding partner of 540 World, which is a circular design consultancy which works in the built environment, and they work with lighting brands and they sort of get our industry. And they assist with things like cradle to cradle certification, and Shalene will be talking about this in her presentation. Now, our agenda for today, first up is Zara. She'll take us through what makes Skinflint unique. She'll look at some of the pioneering measures they've introduced in recent years. Tim will look at the sustainability measures in both the wider Fagerhult group and more specifically in Whitecroft, including its policy on environmental metrics. And as I said, Shalene will walk us through the cradle-to-cradle standard and certification, how it can help lighting manufacturers. And finally, Dave will discuss the sustainability measures that Stone Lighting have been taken and is going to, what they're doing to minimize their sort of carbon impact on the wider world. And finally, we have Nigel Harvey, CEO of Ricolite, will be joining us for a panel discussion following the presentations. And at this point, we would welcome your thoughts, your comments, and your questions. Now, today's session is being recorded, and it will in due course appear on the Ricolite website as well, so you can listen again at your leisure. This webinar will be an hour and a half. We'll aim to finish at 12:30 p.m. today. Now, as I always say this, please put your questions in the questions box and your chat in the chat box. I say this because I only look at the Q&A box during the event. Now, Suzanne, my colleague, she is taking care of the chat. So if you have any technical issues or queries, you put them in there and she will endeavor to do her best to assist you. Now, today is one of a series of webinars. If you missed any, you can catch them again. Now, we have a couple coming up later this year. We have on Thursday, the 18th of May, 2023, we have making Cat A fit out sustainable. And we're going to look at possible solutions and business models and ways we can sort of tackle this decades-old issue of new luminaires getting removed. And on Thursday, the 22nd of June, we'll do a deep dive into the waste regs and your responsibilities. As all importers and producers of lighting products have a range of responsibilities and obligations, and in this webinar, we look in depth at those and how you can stay compliant. So I hope to see you at some of these during the year, and you can register for these on that URL there, ricolite.co.uk/events. Now, you can also watch all our previous webinars, including those from 2020 and 2021 on the Ricolite website again. You can fast forward and look at individual presentations, which I find really useful. But there's a lot of good stuff in there. Even though they've been, some of them are 2 years old, still a lot of really good material there, and I would commend them to you. Now, I also want to remind you before we start that there are still places at our special conference on remanufacturing lighting. And this is a one-day event, takes place at the Coin Street Conference Centre in London on Thursday, the 27th of April 23. It's designed to help you make a success of luminaire reconditioning and reuse. We look at all the opportunities and challenges in this field, and it should really, help equip you and inspire you, hopefully, to join this revolution. Now, I won't go through all the excellent speakers, but you can see them there, and they'll be speaking on the day. We'll have debates and presentations, and it should be really interesting. So still place available, so go on the website if you want to register. And our big event is an important date for your diary is a Circular Lighting Live 2023. This takes place at the Royal College of Physicians in London. It's just by Regent's Park there. And it takes place on Thursday, 21st September 2022. And it's a one-day conference and exhibition. We believe it's the UK's biggest event ever dedicated to sustainable lighting. That was instant success last year. We're building on that with this bigger venue, got a much larger exhibition area. We'll have a dedicated track for lighting designers and architects. And of course, specifiers, independent specifiers go free, by the way. I'd like to thank all the sponsors who have supported this event, and you can see them all there. So for more information, and you can register now at circularlighting.live. So that's the event, circularlighting.live. You can also follow the links through the Ricolite website. Tickets will go on sale next month, so keep an eye out for that. I also need to mention our one-day workshops on lighting product design for a circular economy. Now, these are an in-person event. They're run by Simon Fisher, the well-known luminaire and product designer, and he's a founder and director of F-Mark. I've been to one of these, they're great. He does a deep dive into some products. He does a teardown. He does TM66 before our very eyes. So there's a lot of learnings, a lot of mutual support. So the next ones coming up are in London on the Tuesday, the 16th of May, and Thursday, the 22nd of June. The places are limited to 12 per session. So you need to move quickly because they do sell out. Again, you can register and see more info at ricolite.co.uk. And finally, a reminder about the Circular Lighting Report. This is the guide to the latest developments in sustainable and circular lighting. It's on the Ricolite website. It is also, you can follow it on LinkedIn. Just highlight a few recent stories. We had the news that was revealed in our first webinar by Christina Allison, and that is there's a special lighting version of CIBSE's Technical Memorandum 65 is being planned. Now, TM65 is a widely accepted metric for measuring embodied carbon, and this special lighting version is currently in draft stage and will be released next year. So that will include all new materials, special definitions and acronyms from the lighting sector, and product case studies from 18 luminaire manufacturers. The document will make it easier and quicker to measure embodied carbon in luminaires and other lighting equipment, and there will also, I believe, be a web-based calculator tool. Of course, it complements TM66, which is the standard for measuring the circularity of a luminaire, and that is due to come out later this summer. In product news, we had a story that Signify's latest retail luminaire will have a housing made of more than 68% bioplastics. The store flow is designed also for lowest weight and lowest volume to limit transportation related CO2 emissions. So it's been engineered to be easy to dismantle at the end of the life. It doesn't use any glue or any potted electronics, to coin a phrase. So it's upgradable, it's reusable, it's recyclable, and it's easy to repair. And it's nice to see these products coming through. It's also got a QR service tag, which I think will be probably default in the future, so people can easily see all the info and about that product. And as I say, you can read the full story on Circular Lighting Report. And finally, the BEIS MEPS issue rolls on. This is the minimum luminous efficacy performance standards from the government department that used to be called BEIS, but is now the Department of Energy Security and Net Zero. And the new rules mandate a minimum energy performance standard for light sources and lamps, including those in luminaires, of 120 lumens per watt in 2023, rising to 140 lumens per watt in 2027. Now, the LIA has been liaising with the government on this, but you can also add your voice and your comment to the consultation. Just a reminder, the closing date for the consultation is Tuesday week, that's the 4th of April. You can find the link to the consultation at the bottom of our story on the Circular Lighting Report. Search Ricolite and follow the links. Right, onto the business at hand, and I'm delighted to hand over to Zara from Skinflint, who's going to kick us off. Zara.
Thanks so much, Ray, and yeah, thanks so much for having us as well today. Super excited to be talking about what we're up to at Skinflint. Here we go, let me share my screen. Cool, so for those of you who sort of don't know, I'm Zara from Skinflint. We are a company based down in Cornwall along the Penryn River, and we do restored original vintage lighting. We sort of always talk about the fact that we don't make lights, we find them. We have 3 guiding principles to salvage the best vintage lights from the 1920s to the 1970s, to refurbish every fixture to the highest modern day standards, and to restore every piece without compromising character. And that's a commitment we made, I'd say, around, well, when we founded the business, that was about 12, 13 years ago, and we never have and we never will waver from that. Our mission, there we go. I think we're good. Our mission, we stop lights going to landfill. We're a certified B Corp, so we use business as a force for good. We give back to charities that support the environment every year through 1% for the planet. And ultimately for us, the circular economy is ingrained into our business model. That is what we do through and through, and I'll talk a bit more about that. So the lights that we actually restore, the salvage locations, we scour the world ultimately for the highest quality vintage lights that we can possibly find. We salvage the lights that outlive the buildings and the uses they were made for. So sort of when you have these lovely buildings coming down that were once designed sort of 100, 200, 300 years ago, we often find that the lights within them outlive those buildings. So we salvage from places like shipbreakers' yards in India to abandoned glassworks outside of Budapest, everything from pendants from the German DDR to medical lamps from field hospitals in the former USSR. And you can see on the left-hand side, this is an old hospital building that we've salvaged lights from. Lights come from really famous places as well, so Concorde testing facilities. You can see on the left-hand side where these lights on the right were salvaged from. The Rolls-Royce factory in Derby, super iconic. Lights on the right-hand side that were salvaged and then ultimately restored. And RAF Scampton as well, which I know has been in the press recently. You can see these really beautifully engineered GEC lights on the left-hand side. But yeah, they just have so much life left in them. Restoring them just makes so much sense to us as a business. So to talk a bit more about the restoration processes, we always preserve signs of age and character. They're the parts for us that really tell the story of the lights and their wonderful heritage. All of our lights are restored from our studio and workshops down in Cornwall. We gently disassemble each light, look at all of the little flaws and plan how to bring them up to modern day standards. The processes start with things like soda blasting and will end with polishing before obviously rewiring and ensuring all the lights are brought up to modern day standards. But in terms of sustainability, that's actually all done within 10 miles of our studio and workshop, just to try and keep that sort of local, close to home, and make sure that when lights aren't coming to us, they're then sort of going hundreds of miles back out to go through these processes. Lights for life. We keep vintage lights in circulation forever. We start by salvaging and restoring the lights from around the world, but ultimately we don't stop there. So our business model is designed to design out waste, giving clients the chance to trade in their lights a year after purchase. It keeps high quality lights that were designed and made to last in use ultimately forever. That is Full Circle, our buyback scheme, which takes product circularity one step further. The lights that come back to us are then restored, certified by our experts and placed back into the market. We've been really fortunate to have been nominated and won some industry awards for this as well, and I believe it to be the first in the industry. We launched this in 2020 and we're seeing some really great success, which is fantastic. It's our aim ultimately that none of the lights we salvage end up at landfill, and we keep those in circulation. So super positive from our side. So a bit more on sustainability. If I sort of go back to B Corp slightly, and I know I mentioned we are a certified B Corp and we certified at the end of December 2021. Our vision as a business really is to be a solution to disposable lighting choices. We were born and built to buck those fast furniture trends, creating sustainable change in the industry. And a byproduct, or rather a sort of a requisite of becoming a B Corp, is that we are legally required to consider our impact on the planet and our people. And we have to publish our impact reports online. So you're very welcome to head on over to B Corp and take a look through our impact report and our scores. A benefit of us being a B Corp as well from a sustainability standpoint is that we're able to learn from a network of businesses who are also prioritising the planet and their people, and we get to work with other B Corps too, which is great. A good example of this is Origin Coffee, who are based down in Cornwall, but they have coffee shops up in London as well. You'll see above the counter, these are our restored vintage GEC lights that once sat in runways of airfields. We work with kitchen designers, companies like Plain English, where you can see our restored pendants here above this lovely kitchen counter too. And bars and restaurants, not just in London, but around the world really, but just pictured here. Number 29, Battersea Power Station, one of my favourite cafes. Restaurants like Padella too. You'll see their sort of signature little P logo dotted along the opaline globes. And last but not least, Lush. We're really fortunate as well that we sort of have this prop hire side of the business, which means that film and TV productions can hire these lights from us. We send them out, they go away and they star in these amazing productions like Nolly, which has just been released on ITV, Inside Man on BBC as well, and even films like Mission Impossible. And it's just a lovely extra layer in the story of these lights. You can see above here are sort of opaline wall lights nicely in the shops. Perfect. So I will just leave you with a bit of a video, which will just sort of summarize what we've run through. I'll press play. If there are any issues with the audio, just give me a shout.
At Skinflint, we've combined a passion for classic design with a commitment to sustainability to become Europe's leading vintage lighting retailer. All our lights are exclusively high-quality originals, dating between 1920 and 1970, and sourcing them takes us to the most intriguing locations. Once the salvaged items reach our Victorian warehouse, our specialist team gets busy researching each light. This allows us to work out the best way to re-engineer each one, restore it sensitively, and bring it up to modern-day standards. It's called product circularity. And it's better for our future than the make, take, use, lose model that drives overconsumption and climate change. For over a decade, we've been supplying private residences and commercial clients all over the world with an ever-changing and evolving range of lighting, an unrivaled level of service, the story of each item's origin, salvage and restoration, and a lifetime warranty that includes repairs. We also offer our full circle buyback scheme, where after a year of ownership, clients can return lights in exchange for a 50% credit towards a future purchase. Returned items are then restored, certified, and placed back into the market. This is our commitment to sustainability through the circular economy.
Great.
At Skinflint,
There we are. We won't go again on that. But that really is everything from me. I will leave it there for now and I will hand over to Tim. Thanks so much.
That's great, Sarah. Thank you very much. I'll just share my screen, and hopefully you can see the slideshow. Okay. Yes. Good morning, everybody. It's great to be here. Thank you very much for the invitation to take part today. So I'm going to talk briefly, just for 10 minutes or so, around our journey to date around the adoption of circular economy and some of the work we've done since we launched Whitecroft Vitality back in 2020. And then just talk briefly about some of the challenges we've come across on that journey, and where I feel where we are maybe today as Whitecroft, but perhaps the wider light industry, and also perhaps just think about some of the easy wins around doing this, where we are today, perhaps where we were when we started. And I guess our journey started from challenging perhaps what we'd done traditionally in lighting, and with a consideration for sustainability, which I guess was driven predominantly by luminaire efficiency and the adoption of LED technology, and of course lighting controls. But I think perhaps what we started to identify through discussions we were having around the wider sustainability topic and broadening it from just operational energy was maybe some of the unintended consequences of product design and choices that we were making going forward. And from that, we implemented circular economy principles, and we did get to a sort of a crossroads at the start of this, where we could have gone down a carbon route, or we could have gone down a circular route. And I'll come back to carbon later, because we have obviously now addressing that in more detail. But at the time, the values of circularity seemed to fit better with us as a business. And we adopted this approach of challenging ourselves about how we design out waste and pollutions. This is about reducing the amount of material that we used. It was about working with UK supply chains where it was possible, and also implementing modularity back into what we do within our product design, so making sure that products had a future opportunity to be repurposed, remanufactured, reused going forward, and then maintain the life of that product going into the future. We wanted to look at how do we keep those products going longer. So again, how do we start building relationships better with our clients? How do we build relationships with our products? And then how do we enable regeneration at the end of life as well? And taking on board those Ellen MacArthur Foundation principles and adopt them into our own business. But also what we started to identify was, whilst it was focused perhaps around products originally in what we were doing, we started to see wider business impacts and opportunities and benefits in what we could do by adopting circularity in, I guess, making our own business more sustainable and driving through improvements in what we do. And finally, one of the start of that was, how do we create transparency in what we do? How do we make sure that what we provide to the market and to our own business is following good practice and avoiding unintended consequences in the choices that we make? And the transparency around sustainability was increasingly something that kept coming back to us as we started on this journey. That's great, Whitecroft, but prove it. How do you come to that decision? Where's the evidence of what you're doing? And from that, we landed on the Cradle to Cradle Innovation Institutes. Now, Cradle to Cradle is one of the schools of thought that influences the circular economy as a wider principle. And from the product side of things, or from the Cradle to Cradle Institute, it covers two different sides. It looks at how we design our products. So it looks at the material health. So really going into a very granular detail about what goes into our products, not just is it recycled, isn't it recycled, is it bio-based, but actually what's the chemical composition of that material and that product. And now that relied very much on a closer supply chain collaboration in what we do. And then around the product circularity, how do we design our products in a circular way, making sure the choices that we were making within our product design were following a good practice approach for people who obviously understood this topic far greater than we did at the time. Then also what this started to do, it created a more holistic approach for us, because we could start looking at how we manufacture our products as well, and what we're doing in their own business, and what are we doing to address clean air and climate protection. So it encouraged us to sped up our process to deliver 100% renewable electricity, or manufacture with 100% renewable electricity. What do we do in water and soil stewardship? Okay, maybe less of a challenge, for us in the UK, but certainly other parts of the world, the use of clean water, access to water becomes really important. And finally, the social fairness. What are we doing as a business, as a UK manufacturer, to demonstrate and provide social balance in what we do in our local community, but also into our supply chain as well. And to date, we have 8 families that are certified through Cradle to Cradle, or auto level bronze. We have some challenges around material health to get to that, but from a product circularity point of view, we are currently at gold, social fairness silver, water silver, and then climate protection at gold. Then this gives us a continual improvement methodology as well. So rather than just saying this is where we are today and sitting where we need to be, the accreditation encourages us to continue to develop. So every 2 years, we have to have our products recertified under version 3. That'll move to 3 years under version 4, but make sure we're continually demonstrating better in what we do, both within our product design, the impact of our products, learning more and more about what we do, but also our own business improvements as well. But as I mentioned at the beginning, circularity is a route that we took at the beginning, but since then we've identified and seen that actually, carbon has been growing as an important metric within our industry. Now, rightly or wrongly, the focus seems to be driven within construction on carbon and reducing our carbon. And interestingly, moving less and less about operational carbon. Still important, of course, we know that's where lighting has its biggest impact today. But as we move through away from that, actually the impact of what's happening within the manufacturing, the choices that we make our own business, become more important, that embodied carbon side of things. Of course, if we don't measure it, we don't know what impacts and choices we need to make going forward. So we have started to adopt EPDs within our vitality range and TM65 within our non-vitality range to enable us to measure and present to the market what is the climate impact of our products across all those various different climate global warming impacts and across the different stages of a product as well. And we've adopted one-click LCA as the tool to help us do that at the EPD level going forward. But also that measuring of carbon sits at a wider level as well within our own business. And the Fagerholt Group as a whole, just in the last couple of weeks, have confirmed or published their commitments around science-based targets. This is looking at our direct impacts, our indirect impacts, but then also looking into what is happening upstream and downstream within our business. So upstream, what's in our supply chain, downstream, what happens once our products in the market, and then creating a roadmap that addresses all three of these different scopes going forward with a target of 2045 to be net zero in line with these science-based targets. But again, by measuring not just the products, but the whole business has enabled us to set those targets in a very transparent way going forward. But once we've got that measurement, what does it mean for us? What can we start to do? Well, we can start to look at different material choices. We can start to innovate around our product design. I think one really interesting slide for me that we started to see here is around our 600 by 600 Cascade Flex vitality products like Cradle to Cradle. When we've done the carbon analysis, what we found actually is whilst the weight of the LED board is 2% of the impact, actually when you translate it into carbon, it becomes nearly a quarter of the carbon load. So by creating the transparency, by understanding what our products do, we can start to address different materials and start to create different programs and different platforms going forward. And some examples that's driven us for. So with our suspended luminaire that we launched last year, our Selene, we're using double-sided LED boards. So rather than one board for the down, one board for the up, by having a double-sided board means we've reduced the amount of FR4 material needed to deliver the direct and indirect components. We started to increase the use of recycled materials within our content. Started to work better with our supply chain to understand what they can provide us that could reduce our impact going forward. Yes, around carbon, but also around material health and material identification and recycled content, reducing our impact of virgin materials. But also it's created new business models. So again, through our Relight initiative, we're looking at that remanufacturing, repurposing of existing assets or existing spaces, should I say, and challenge the need to, do we always need to replace with new, which perhaps has been a culture of the last 10 years with LED technology. Is often let's take them out, put a new flat panel in. Can we reutilize the existing assets and trying to help clients and businesses demonstrate and understand the benefits of utilizing existing assets, both from an operational point of view, from a light quality point of view, but also from a embodied carbon, but broadening that carbon discussion going forward. And what are some of the challenges we've had to this adoption? I think the first thing is where do you start? It is a big topic, and it's a topic that is perhaps maybe new to what we need to do, and that can be a challenge and quite daunting to think about. One of the reasons why that challenge can be there is the consistency of what is required. Now, we see a very broad range of requests and requirements from customers. Everybody's asking for something slightly different, or a slightly different metric, or a slightly different standard or guidance or compliance. Which is the one that we need to adopt to enable us to do this in a more effective way and obviously manage the balance of cost and time to do this. What are the legislative drivers for this? Again, maybe a link to the point above around consistency. Where is government going? We're starting to see government documents encourage requirements around embodied carbon. they're now more a nice to have rather than a stipulation, but in time it's inevitable that will start to come through. But what's the time frame for that? How long will it take? Education. We're still driven by a business that is, or an industry that is focused by operational carbon. How do we help educate people around some of the new terminology, the new language, the new approach we have to take, the longer term benefits that some of that can bring? Because we are driven by an industry that I guess is driven by a business as usual approach. I'm not talking about lighting, I'm talking about maybe the wider construction industry, where we go to our usual suppliers, we want to just deliver the building in the way we've always delivered it, or design a product in the same way, or submit the same information because we know it, we understand it, we're comfortable with it. And we saw something similar with BIM maybe 10 years ago, where the adoption of BIM was something that the industry was maybe resistive of adopting, but now has become the norm. How do we help educate and inform and help that business as usual approach change? And some of it will be lack of infrastructure. Taking, for example, the end of life of the regeneration of assets. Now, some of the challenges, there simply isn't that infrastructure there to close that loop perhaps today. So how do we help address that and make sure that can grow going forward? And finally, just some of the easy wins. How do we do this better? I think there are simple tools out there that can help us on this journey. TM65 is a great tool. TM66, they're great tools to understand around lighting, how we can then benefit and start to model and map some of our impacts going forward. Make it relatable. We had some great success when we launched our Cascade Flex products of talk about the reduction in plastics. And yes, we reduced plastic by 70%, but what does that mean? How do we turn it into something tangible? And so we use this plastic bottle analogy. We'll reduce the plastic from 102 down to 34. It's a very quick, easy win for people to understand and get something tangible to see what the benefit could be of sustainable design, and help people then write in specifications or presentations themselves to deliver to clients to show what they're trying to do. There's some great industry collaboration. I mean, today is a great example of that. Through the Green Light Alliance, the SLL, ILP, the work being done around BS8887, the LAA, all these groups and all these organizations in lighting are coming together to help inform each other and support each other in this journey that we're on going forward. And that's really important because we all understand the challenge we have around us. There's a lot of ambition to do it better and to do it more effectively. And finally, there is some wider sector guidance out there that's really good going on. There's some great work from the UK Net Zero Carbon Building Standards. The UK Green Building Council just the other week published some single page explainers for things like net zero. What does it mean? What is operational carbon? What's embodied carbon? The work being done by the London Energy Transformation Initiative around some of these documents. There's some great stuff out there that could just help to explain in a simple way some of this new terminology, some of this new language going forward to help inform what is on going forward in the future. So thank you for your time, and I'll pass over to Charlene.
Thanks, Tim, and welcome everyone. So welcome to what I would call an introduction to sustainable design, a failed model without material health and regenerative design ambitions. Or for today's purposes and being more practical, sustainability, what manufacturers are embracing and what specifiers should to create planet positive projects. So my name is Shalene Church. I am a founding partner of a group called 540 World. We are regenerative design consultants, and essentially we do B2B modular consulting services across several different programs. And today we'll be talking a little bit about foundations, or C2C foundations, which is cradle to cradle, and we'll be doing a little bit of knowledge sharing applicable to the lighting environment. We also do management enabling, work on strategy and adoption programs, material optimizations, and various other bits and pieces. So essentially, we enable the industry to transform from linear design to non-toxic circular design. So whether you are a manufacturer, a client, or specifier, through provision of the B2B modular consulting. So when I was 9 years old, I helped with penguin rehabilitation, cleaning oil out of feathers, beaks, nostrils, and eyes. So I learned early that materials in the wrong places can wipe out our wonderful, intricate ecosystem. No matter what product you make or specify, this is the starting point. Products and their component parts need to be held to a higher benchmark than compliance or even sustainability, and I will explain this in a minute. Materials in the wrong places equal waste, according to Thomas Rao, and interestingly, when asked about application of regenerative circularity, he mentioned lighting as his first exemplar, where lighting is no longer seen as a product, but instead light as a service. And this showcases the beginning of thinking in healthy cycles. Fortunately, today we have robust regenerative design principles and a product framework that steers safe, non-toxic circular design today, 20 years mature, namely cradle to cradle certified. C2C is exclusive to MBDC, and C2C certified is exclusive to the Cradle to Cradle Products Innovation Institute. So 2 decades of work has essentially defined a benchmark we can all embrace. The starting point is non-toxic, planet-positive materials. So why is non-toxic circular design so important? Simply put, scientists have modeled that for a thriving planet, we have 9 key areas called the planetary boundaries, or PBs, that require healthy stewardship. In 2022, we transgressed 6 of these 9. So we need to reverse this trend at pace. Today, the number 1 threat to the planet is not CO2, it's a range of toxic pollution, particularly aquatic pollution, according to the GOES Foundation. And there's a QR code for you to grab hold of later to find out more information on that. But basically, these chemicals, pharmaceuticals, microplastics, and half-burned shipping fuel particulate, or man-made toxins, are called novel entities. So nothing much has changed in 40 years since I tried to clean my penguin. We need to align projects and product choices with planet-positive ambitions, principles, and products. When it comes to design ambitions, there is a wide range, from compliance below in red, which is part of the degenerative system, through to sustainable in yellow, mid-range, which is notably also part of a degenerative planetary ambition. So firstly, we need to tackle our specifying and manufacturing language, like Tim says, and align language, ambitions, products, and projects accordingly. Regenerative design is the level vital to restore our planet. So what are C2C's 3 regenerative design principles refined after years of work and relevant for products? 1 is to eliminate the concept of waste, materials in wrong places. Instead, see everything as a nutrient resource for another life cycle. Rely on natural energy and celebrate all diversity from humans to flora, fauna, metal, minerals, soil, water, oceans, air, and atmosphere, as per the planetary boundaries. Significantly, we need to aim for products and materials that are able to circulate in systems. And thank you for both previous speakers mentioning both of that today. So technical products essentially need to stay in technospheres or technical cycles, and biological products in biological cycles. So to go back to the penguin analogy, oil slicks or microplastics in oceans are a case in point of materials in wrong places causing waste and toxicity. So knowing our materials ingredients and keeping them in healthy flows is the vital first step. Jumping decades, the principles evolved into a product innovation framework, a certification called Cradle to Cradle Certified, adopted worldwide today with over 40,000 product variations certified. It's now the global standard for innovating safe, circular, and responsibly made products. So good news for penguins and ourselves. This is the only global multi-metric standard that is fully aligned with all the planetary goals and fully dedicated to planet-positive product development. An innovation framework for products that is built in continuous improvement systems, which Tim already mentioned, with third-party assessors, so no greenwash self-declarations, all in one certificate and one framework. Essentially, C2C Certified has a 5-category socio-environmental framework supporting over 11 UN SDGs and all 9 planetary boundaries. This science-based holistic scoring system is why the Environment Agency adopted C2C certified materials into their Team 2100 contracts from 2021, at an exponential level. So we're now on roughly 29% cradle-to-cradle certified materials in projects. And why the Belgian government has done the same. Simplified, products are scored across these 5 categories from bronze through to platinum, as Tim mentioned earlier, and the lowest score from one of these categories becomes the overall score for the certificate. So given the context and ideal consulting ladder on slide 3, what's actually being embraced by early adopters in the UK? So some of that has been discussed already today. We know that there are some real CO2 reductions. We know that there are fantastic tools and tech and data reporting that's being incorporated, so things like EPDs and LCAs. We're seeing new supply chain strategy work. We're seeing contracts and briefs starting to incorporate sustainable regenerative design. We're seeing material optimizations. Tim's spoken a bit about that too. Sometimes it's a reduction in material, sometimes it's a change in material from PVC to other types of polymers. We're also seeing circularity principles and leadership through BREEAM and other bodies, socio-environmental programs, things like C2C certified, and seeing sector-specific support like TM65 and workshops previously mentioned. And we're also seeing some really astounding design changes when it comes to circularity through modularity, repair, recycled materials in products, etc., etc. So that's a little bit of a snapshot of where we are today. What we know about the international territories with the highest ambition levels, like the Netherlands, and this is Park 2020 in the Netherlands, and Belgium, is that they collaborate for impact. And we found our biggest successes here are also impactful in collaboration. So companies like Whitecraft, who partnered with C2C certified global assessors, have innovated ranges of luminaires now, and they're arguably in this sector the best in the world. Global assessors are specialist innovators from ingredients health to the parts per million in the chemistry ingredients of the products, through to circularity, water and soil stewardship, clean air and climate protection pathways for products, social fairness. So in partnership, manufacturers and specifiers can leverage or lean on the expertise of these global teams to effectively, safely and robustly make or specify products fit for the future through C2C certified. Park 2020 here uses C2C principles and products, showcasing the possible and profitable regenerative design in practice. This is the new World Trade Center. They worked with their supply chain for 6 years to develop safe and certified materials and achieved C2C certified materials throughout 95% of their offices. Solutions do not happen overnight, and we can fast track our component parts, products, or material developments based on this work through the C2C global assessor bodies. And Tim again has mentioned some of that work that they've done. And then looking more locally, we've done some work with Microsoft. These are their new offices in London. These are out of the Google offices in King's Cross. And further in the UK, we did the world's first certified Accoya fender with biodiversity design for the Thames, in collaboration with Access International Timber, Jacobs, Balfour Beatty, and 2 universities for the Environment Agency's Team 2100. So it is possible to change our linear designs to positive ones, particularly in collaboration. So we basically say challenge the brief, challenge your contracts, challenge your clients, and have a thought through conscious design effort all the way through the stakeholder group. This is the UK C2C certified multi-materials retrofit in London, the first of its kind. It was the world's first grower BioEdge mixer fit, and various other, it was about 13 C2C certified manufacturers coming together to showcase that it is possible to do an entire retrofit with C2C certified products. Like I mentioned, they achieved in Zin in the World Trade Center. Another collaboration that we've seen launched this year is Circular Design Network, which we are part of. The knowledge partner is Cradle to Cradle Products Innovation Institute, and it's a combination of clients, knowledge leaders, and manufacturers. And so I can't reiterate enough the importance of getting involved with collaborations in your sectors like ASPB, various other groups, and drive forward the knowledge that is already available internationally. The idea is for manufacturers and clients to come together through circular design network, but also some solutions lie beyond circular design networks. So obviously through tasking companies like ourselves to do regenerative design research, materials and swaps. And similarly, there are other tools available, like the world's first free national interactive C2C design directory, which is available from www.540.world, and also the international registry available through the Cradle to Cradle Products Innovation Institute's platform. And further, what we're seeing today now is some really exciting AI-enabled platforms and other digital tools which can help you not only with circular metrics, but also data capture of socio-environmental materials, and also to give those transparent reports across your stakeholder groups. So to sum up, if you think through these different areas of the innovation framework, you will be able to really design effective and efficient and affordable, because we're talking about commercially affordable products, something obviously we need to be competitive and do the right thing at the same time. So we're talking about knowing your materials, looking at product circularity very robustly through from, that includes sourcing and systems and design, and through to the soil, water, clean air, climate protection, social fairness stewardships. So finally, to clarify, our ambition: collaborate towards regenerative design, innovate, manufacture and specify C2C certified products. We can together transform the UK's built environment to a non-toxic, exemplar, circular world of good. Thank you for listening. And over to Dave Hollingsby, MD of Stone Lighting. Thank you.
Hello. Thank you, Charlene. Pull my screen up.
Charlene, could you stop sharing? And then,
That's okay. I think I've got it now.
Okay, cool.
Screen 2. That should come up now. Have you got that?
Mm-hmm.
Thank you. Wow. Great set of presentations there. And thank you, everybody, for joining. There's lots of overlap, I think, in what we're doing as companies, interesting views on things. My task now in the next few minutes is, I think, just to blast through Stone Lighting's take on things and try and maybe at the end stimulate conversation about how, about the things that come out of that. I'll try not to dwell too much on the overlap, although it's hard not to spot some of that in the presentations that have just gone through. And before we really get started, I thought one of the things I've snuck an extra slide in here is just to remind ourselves why this topic can be quite daunting. It can be very fulfilling. It can be actually financially beneficial too. But at the end of the day, I think there's no more poignant time than this week to remember just how serious, imminent, and continuous this issue is. So I pinched this well-circulated graphic just to sort of kick it off with a slightly bracing thought there. So really, I just want to set the background to it, and what I'll do is talk about the things that we consider fairly straightforward, and then go on to things that we've been sort of pushing harder into, that we think we need to be doing, going beyond that, and fully appreciative of the fact that we are a particular business, not a very large one, and there's certain things that we can do and can't do that others can and can't do, and maybe that's a point to sort of dive into a bit towards the end. But from our point of view, we're a sort of SME, we're a B Corp, employee owned. We primarily cater for the architectural lighting design end of the market. We've for a long time offered a 5-year warranty, and we've been maintaining our kit if people ever called us up to see if an old piece of equipment could be refreshed, repaired, or whatever. But more recently, we've formalized that offering and sort of tidied up the thing that supports it too. We call it a duty of care. It's not just words, and that was something we were really keen to demonstrate before we start talking about that, being able to actually follow through on pretty much anything that you pull out of the field beyond its warranty, and still be able to give a meaningful intervention to get it back into circulation again, and not just do that in the factory, but there's plenty of scenarios where that's not much use to a customer. So being able to do that in the field is in many cases, you know, part of the deal, really. So we've been scratching our heads and trying to figure out the way to do that, and we've launched this on-site branch to our Renew service as well lately. We'll talk more about that in a minute, but it's kind of there on the slide. Yeah, so just mention the duty of care. Basically, you need to have a certain degree of control over your IP, your components, the ability to source original parts, but through no fault of your own, components and technology developments can mean they become delisted. So having routes to get around that and put kit back into circulation with whatever is available, and generally it's more efficient and brings other benefits too. So being able to do that and do that on site if needs be as well. Carbon offsetting, I mean, it's a means to an end. There are better and worse firms to do that with, but we figure in the meantime, that's something we can be doing for the bits we can't address right now. So for into our third year of that now, capturing our scope 1, 2, and 3, and then positively offsetting it and doing it with as reliable a company as we can find. There's obviously plenty of stories of dubious companies and the so-called offset schemes that they offer. Banishing plastics and that sort of thing from packaging. Again, it's for a smaller business like ours, it's pretty straightforward. And I'm glad to say we were able to, you know, banish that a few years back. And actually there's wins in there too. If you're able to accept that there's a little bit less uniformity in the aesthetics of the boxes you're sending out, it's really the contents that are the bit that we're worried about. And you know, it means we can reuse boxes. Don't need to buy new boxes. We don't need to buy filler components if you're able to reuse it. So you know, pardon the pun, it is kind of fulfilling as well for the team to be seeing that happening in real time, and just saves money too. Zero to landfill, another easy win. This day and age, there's all sorts of operators out there that will take your waste and in you know, fairly granular categories. It's just a question of filtering it at the point of collection around the building. That's something we've done for a good few years now. And then you've got we as well, and for our business like ours, quite a bit of metal offcuts and swarf and that sort of thing, using a decent, reliable merchant there. And actually, you can make money as well as keeping the place clean and functioning. Going electric, there's a bit of cost involved. There's different ways you can approach that. We're still on that journey. We use sustainable tariffs to supply our electricity, still swithering with the pros and cons of PVs and that sort of thing on site. And in the meantime, moving more and more equipment across to you know, electrical energy rather than gas or whatever, and vehicles as well, similarly. A key thing, and plenty of reference to this through previous talks, is sustainability metrics, a key part to the reason that the GLA was founded in the first place. And it shouldn't really need saying, but I think it does still a little too often. You can't claim it if you can't count it, and if you're going to count it, you need to verify that too. And there's almost I won't say too many, but there's a lot of matrices coming through out there. We've been looking at a lot of them lately, and as to the right of the slide, you'll see we sort of summarize our current views on it. There is that we think, as Tim was saying too, you know, the TM65 for your embodied carbon and your TM66 is a really good starting point. And in many cases, maybe that's suitable for project calculation or products calculation, and they're being enhanced and refined and incorporated into other parts of the built environment metrics as well. There's no doubt, though, that there's plenty that doesn't seek to address, that's covered by full LCAs, and so we're working on that too and observing how that's coming out. I think it's fair to say that there's proper legislation coming in many parts of the world, which will disrupt that part of the industry soon too. And no better time to start learning than now. And these sort of gateway metrics, if you like, the TM65, 66 are great for that. And it's being used now. I believe it's being used as a decision maker in the specification of product for projects we're involved in already. So it pays as well. Yeah, and again, this is sort of perhaps going a little bit further, but using the knowledge gained and the ground gained in this area, and working with specifiers, collaborating with projects and the stories that come out of them. For the couple of case studies there, it's, I hope, helping us to understand. It's definitely helping us to understand. I hope it's helping others to understand how these metrics can be employed and deployed in real time. Now, for a business like ours, some of these things are probably easier than they are for other businesses, and so hence the elephant in the room there. And it'd be really interesting to understand how this sits with others, and also interesting to see how we develop as a business. Some of this stuff may not turn out to be scalable, and that's going to present some interesting challenges and questions for us. The key thing I think for our business that we've always done and always intend to do is we make to order. We don't make stock and then go and sell it, which is a fundamental sort of, I guess, choice of direction. When you do that, it means the waste is by definition minimized. There's no extra bits made. It does mean you're reducing the financial outlay too, perhaps the risk and exposure there of overstocking. It probably has benefits in forcing us to be canny, to think smart, the variety, and it sort of seeds innovation to a certain degree. And it forces us to adopt new technologies as they emerge, allows us to do that, and there's not heaps and heaps of inventory of sort of aging technology on the shelves. But it does have an impact on lead time and availability, which is obviously sort of a barrier to certain projects, certain types of work, and it reduces the scalability opportunity to drive down costs, which again is going to have a similar effect. So it's a question we ask ourselves, but also maybe we should do it more in the broader community. There's definitely a lot to be said for this make to order model, but how far can we go with it? Or is there potential that others can take elements from that and go back to that way with modern technology, inventory control, just-in-time deliveries, knowledge of project opportunities coming down? I don't know. It's something we're considering a lot at the moment. And going beyond that, we've been scratching our heads and trying to think of the areas where we've got gaps, where the biggest gaps are, and the company that makes most of its kit out of aluminium. Aluminium was no surprise it came up as one of the first things to look at, the offcuts and the waste and swarf from that process. It's not, in some ways, raw aluminium is quite bad for its embodied carbon. A lot of it is kept in use though and is recycled. Taking control of that a bit further upstream is something we've been doing. Going towards a more additive rather than, well, a less subtractive process in that, custom extrusions and that sort of thing helps. Bringing the work in-house rather than having it subcontracted, that helps in a number of ways. But at the end of the day, we still end up with more bits that we're not able to turn into lights than we would like. And what do we do with that? Worst case, we can have it recycled and get some money back for it and it goes back into the system. But better still is if we can move it right up the value chain in-house and do that with some sort of interesting product coming out of it. So that's something we've been talking about for a little while now. We've been working on it for a little while now, and we're right on the cusp of having cracked it to a marketable product, which you can see on the slide there. And similarly, there's a parallel product, the PLP, which has been launched. It's sequestering the powder overspray dust that comes from our powder coating plant, which was the sort of second most obvious embarrassing gap or leak, I suppose, from the materials cycle that we had. It's not massive quantities. It's not full of solvents and VOCs, but it is, it is plastic and it is a tiny little particle. So you could call it a microplastic, and there are crude ways of capturing that and baking it into bricks or whatever, but that's the bare minimum. Let's see if we can go a bit further. So we've been working on a number of products to capture that and move it up the value chain. So I think it's probably enough on that. Another thing, and again, this is probably nothing that spectacular in a few years' time, but I don't think there's too many people doing at the moment. But with modern technology, the way we build stuff, even when we're making short order, large variety of products in small quantities, it's perfectly feasible to convey the information of the component ingredients that go into that, and give a fighting chance of people at the far end of the supply cycle to do right by that product to the end, whether that's informed maintenance remanufacture or simply splitting it apart the best it can be, and getting the component parts recycled properly. So we've worked on that, and now every single product that leaves the factory goes out with a unique serial number, which links into the website, and will serve up a detailed disassembly instruction sheet that can be used for maintenance or disassembly recycling. Obviously, there's an opportunity for us to intervene with the renew service in between that if needs be, but at the sort of worst case scenario, anybody anywhere in the world ought to be able to take apart one of our fittings and recycle it as responsibly as possible. And I believe this sort of thing is going to become more the norm and perhaps even legislated. So, but like my very first slide, there's no time like the present to get started with this stuff. Everything we can do, and this is within our gift to do fairly affordably, fairly quickly. I just believe we should just do it. Other things we've done, we've as a business, we didn't do so much in these fields, but with the pressing needs bearing down on us to improve our sustainability. As a company, as an industry, we've got very involved with Lighting Europe and the Lighting Industry Association in the UK on their various sustainability working groups, and we've actually got a materials scientist on board for the last year, working on improving us, but also feeding back into the industry in terms of LCAs and product makeup, and yes, already starting to affect the way we think about product design, ingredients, sourcing, materials, all that sort of thing. SIPSI and Society Light and Lighting, again, feeding into that, these two metrics coming out of there, doing a little bit to sort of help work with those, feedback to them. Green Light Alliance, talking about this sort of thing to anybody that will listen, trying to bring more folk together into it. And also sort of conveying it back to the market via CPDs, which we've got 2 or 3 in circulation now. So I don't know how I'm doing for time there, but I know that Ray's about to host some questions. So at this point, I think I switch off my slides and pass back to Ray. Ray?
Thanks, Dave. If I could invite all the rest of our speakers to unmute themselves and turn on their cameras, that'd be really useful. And I'm delighted to be joined by Nigel Harvey, CEO of Recollite. Nigel, have we made a compelling case, do you think, to lighting manufacturers to adopt these standards and procedures, etc.? Or we've got a bit to go, haven't we?
I think there is still a little way to go. I mean, clearly it's been fantastic to hear from Skinflint and Whitecroft and Stone today what you're doing to make a difference. A lot of what you're doing at the moment isn't mandatory. It seems to me that there is going to be massive legislative changes coming down the road that will require a lot more companies to do what you're doing now. And so those, I think, that are already getting involved are likely to be commercially benefit from that when legislation and standards change.
Mm-hmm. Can we talk a little bit about these? Somebody's watching this and thinking, do I need to sign up to B Corp or EcoVadis or C2C, etc.? And thinking, where's the if I make that investment, where's the business benefit? Not so much the planet. Where's the competitive advantage for me? Dave, could you sell that to somebody and say, look, you said there's been sort of financially beneficial to be in those, but how would you quantify that?
That's a really good question. It does come up a little bit, and I've done a fair few calls with specifiers as well, and architects curious about the journey to being B Corp in particular. We've done both, found them both pretty grueling. One, the EcoVadis one was with a particular client in mind that was requiring it. The B Corp was more sort of self-elected. I think they're both excellent. Neither take any prisoners. They both have their own sort of communities. The EcoVadis one is definitely more environmentally focused, and the B Corp one perhaps a little bit more holistic, but and consequently slightly less focused on just the environment. Yeah, I mean, if a client is asking you to do it, well, there's a direct connection there. The B Corp one's a trickier one, and it depends on who you are. I mean, it's really gratifying to see more and more lighting manufacturers joining. We can't all be mad. But direct sort of commercial benefit from it is a tricky one. Internally,